All right. So are you
Yeah, fix the hair here, you know what I mean? Nah, I'm just kidding. Yeah. This means
are you asking, you're asking me questions here, aren't you?
yeah, let's do that. I can ask you questions.
Okay. And we're talking about scoring in general, or do you want to talk about just specifically this stuff and looking at?
No, we get to that. Like, I'm gonna ask you about the week and like kind of how you know what you've been doing with Billy to get him to that point and how you were able to perform, and you can kind of tie all that in together. Like this is how we did the course prep and so on.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so I start with the recording.
Yeah, it's recording, so you can go whenever.
Okay. All right, guys, I got my longtime coach and good friend John Tattersall here on a Zoom call. John recently caddied for our friend Billy Mitchell, who is actually a trainer in John's gym, and he qualified for the US Senior Open and made the cut. Absolutely fairy tale story or whatever you want to call it. Unbelievable performance. And so I wanted to pick John's brain because if he can take one of his trainers, this is a funny way of saying it. Obviously, Billy is a great player, but still, he trained players in the gym every day, all day, don't really have time to practice, and he was able to perform on the highest level, which is incredible. So I wanted to pick John's brain here to see exactly what was the process, how did you help him before, during the week, and how can someone kind of learn from this experience and improve their own game. So take it away, John.
Thanks, Freddie. It was a great week. You know, it was a culmination of a lot of things, honestly. Billy played professionally 30 years ago, and then he's been a working guy. And he works with me, for me. I work for him sometimes, I guess, but at the facility. So a very good player. Tries to get golf in when he can. So like normal things that we all have to work around. He's a dad, he works, and he wants to get better. So he turned 50 6 years ago. And one of the plans was obviously to play senior golf at a high level. Amateur golf, you turn 55, that's when you get into the amateur events. And now he's eligible for those. So a couple of years ago, he tried to get in the Senior Open and was doing great. I caddied for him then. He made a 9 on a hole and without any penalty shots, hit every one of them. Got in the trees, couldn't get out. And I said to him after that, I said, look, just let's go birdie the last 3 holes and see what happens. And he did, and he missed by 1. So last year, there was no qualifying for the Senior Open. I caddied for him last year, and he got in the US Senior Amateur, made it to match play, and he was a medalist in the qualifying. So I've caddied for him 3 times now, and twice he's got in national tournaments by caddying for him. Now, I'd love to tell you that's all me, but the reality is he's a very, very good player. But we've really identified over the years things he needs to work on, things he needs to get better at. So from a coach's perspective, I'd really like to people understand there was no pixie dust here. There's a culmination of a lot of work and identifying things he needs to get better at, and then we just kept working on them. And we have the benefit of using launch monitors and all those kind of things. So we are looking at equipment we need to tweak, strategy and technique. And as we've done with you, the biggest thing the last few years has really been the focus on strategy. And most of the time when I'm coaching, I'm not with you guys when you're performing, which is one of the hard things about what I do. So having the stats is a great way to get that feedback of what you're actually doing. But this was even better. I actually was on the bag for him in Omaha, which he went out there a couple of weeks before the tournament. And he's like, you're not really going to enjoy this. It's really hilly. It's a lot of tee off, down a hill, back up a hill. I'm like, yeah, you know, how bad can it be? Well, the short story is, you know, I got my watch on. It was 64 miles for the week and 220 floors with a 40-pound bag on my back. So I lost a few pounds, which was good.
Maybe you should do it more often, John.
I should do it more often. Thanks, Freddie.
So
I thought I'd say that before you did.
If we go into that, so there are a lot of guys out there that don't have the time to practice.
Mhm.
Obviously, Billy must have been very efficient in his practice time to be able to play this good. So what is something that you and Billy have been doing to be able to keep his game on such a higher level without having the ability to practice every day?
Yeah, we check on a lot of things, so he knows what he's looking for in his setup. I try and with all my clients, as I do with you, try and help you understand what truly influences the golf ball to do what it's doing. And so you kind of know when something goes wrong, what the heck am I doing? Because you as a player, you need to understand when you're playing. You can't just be calling me all the time. So we did that. And then we said, look, you need to hit the ball further to compete at the level you want to compete at. So he's 56 now, 57. The pros are turning pro at 50. So he's already, in theory, not as good as those guys, and he's 6 years behind them. So we knew that distance was an issue, just to stay competitive. Not that he doesn't hit it far enough, but we got to keep pushing that boundary. So a lot of things we did were really kind of off-season training. Let's get some speed going. So it was not really heavy on technique. It was like periodization on, right, let's work on some speed right now. And then we'll get into, as the year goes along, more of understanding ball control and those kind of things. So trying to make the practice as efficient as possible. And as I do with everybody, sending video back and forth. So even if he's out practicing by himself, he can zip me a quick video, check on it, see what's up, and make sure he's not spending time wasting his time.
So you got a pretty good platform there, right? You have a website and an app where you can go see it for a lesson, and then you can communicate together with a player, you and a player on the phone, which is brilliant. So the way I work with you, right? I see you, I mean, last couple of years, we haven't seen each other much at all, but we all the time sending video or having a discussion or looking at the stats, which is important because in the end, I think you can definitely be a little bit overcoached if you see your coach every single day and you're always working on something. Sometimes it's good to go do your own thing, but keep the conversation going so I stay on the right track. You know me, I love to find things all the yeah. That's the type of player I am. So sometimes you have to scream at me, but if you have a clear idea of what you're trying to achieve, eventually I believe you will get there. But it's always good to have someone to just bounce ideas with, or someone that can tell you, what are you doing? Just keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're both learning. So I know, hopefully, the principles that are important. And that's really what I try and focus my coaching around. But then it's subjective. Like, you have a certain feel of things that make sense to you. And you have a certain sense of what you can trust under pressure. So I could tell you it looks like this and like that. If you can't feel that or trust that under pressure, it's pointless. So having that feedback, I remember years ago, I got to this point because the names won't mean anything, but there was Jesse was in Brazil, you were in Kuwait or Dubai, and another player I coached was in New Zealand, and I was flying back from Florida, texting with all three of you at the same time, looking at swings in the air. And I'm like, this is where we are, like I can't just wait until I see you. I've got to be able to keep you in touch. So I use that Coach Now app. I use Innova Golf for stats. And I tell you some of the things it does too. I think you take a lesson and then it's like, how do I keep you compliant, or how do we keep that thing going back and forth? So I may not say it correctly in person, but then once you see it again, and then once you kind of let it percolate a little bit and you go, hey, you come back to him with ideas all the time. So I think coaching is very much a two-way street. I have the ability of being detached from the performance, and I have the ability to look at stats without emotion, which is tremendous. I think some of the biggest things I've found from looking at stats is, and if you go into the bar of a club and you listen to people talk about their round, they're always talking about the outliers. Like, I hit driver here and I hit wedge from 150. Okay, you may not hit wedge from 150 every time. It may have been downwind, downhill, whatever. But when you have to look at all of it together, you start then not going up and down as much with emotions. And a major is like full on an emotion roller coaster. So I think technique has helped Billy a lot, and looking at the stats has helped a lot. And you and I have talked about this. So the randomization of golf, if you play the first 3 holes badly, does not necessarily say you're going to play the next 14 badly. No. It may have just been you got all your bad shit out of the way on the first 4 holes. And just to jump ahead a little bit, on Sunday, Billy was leading the low amateur event by 2, and which is a huge deal. He's one of 4 amateurs to make the cut in all the best players in the world in his age group. And he's paired with Marco Mira in the final round. So he's paired with a major champion, 2-time major champion in the final round. Mark couldn't have been nicer. And Billy started off bogey the first, parred the second, bogey the third, bogey the fourth, 3-putted 4, 3-putted 5. He's 4 over after 5 holes and really hasn't hit a bad shot. And I said to him, look, you're hitting it great. This is just grinding out here. It's brutal conditions. Let's just let it play out. And he played the next 13 even par, which was tremendous. But if we wouldn't have had that mindset, like, you know, panic's going to set in, and it's like, I'm going to shoot 90, you know.
I think you told me one really good thing once that I always kind of have in the back of my mind, and that is, you're going to miss 3 or 4 shots around. So how you react to those shots is extremely important. You know, if you hit a bad shot on the second hole, slice it into the trees or whatever, if the mindset is, okay, that's one of my 4 bad ones, and then you keep going instead of like, oh my gosh, what happened? You know, you go straight to panic. You know, you almost you don't want to expect to hit bad shots, but the reality is you are going to hit bad shots. So how you react to those, and if you have something in the back of your head, it's like, I am going to miss shots today, so I'm not going to get too upset about it, then I think that kind of calms me down, because I don't have that big of a reaction to when I miss a shot.
I think that's huge. I think, unfortunately, when you're watching golf on TV, it's the entertainment business. And if we really talked on TV the way that you should play, nobody'd watch. You'd have the sound off, because, you know, if you did, they had the microphones on us on a few holes, and we can get into the book we use, and we're aiming for very, very boring targets, and that does not sell commercials. You know, it's like, you know, we grew up, I'm older than you, but watching Tiger play was phenomenal. And then when they've reverse engineered how he actually played, he hit phenomenal shots, but he hit so many good boring shots. And that's what I try and instill on you. And Billy, honestly, I mean, so many times under stress, just hit a decent shot. Like, don't get out of position, or don't try and push the issue too much. When you're playing a major tournament, the conditions are so brutal, you try and push and it just bites you. And then you're pissed off because you've hit a bad shot and you know you shouldn't have tried that shot. So it's a double whammy.
I mean, like you're saying, if we were watching the tour, it looks like everyone are just sending it to the pin, going for everything. But the truth is that, I mean, we're hitting into the boring part of the greens. And you said you had a yardage book there, and you kind of do something special with it, right?
Well, special is one thing, effective is what it came down to. So I don't know how many people have seen a tour yardage book, but every sprinkler head is marked. Obviously, it gives us front yardage, middle yardage, carry lines, layup yardages. And, you know, Billy didn't grow up with this. And so Wednesday, we played a practice round on Wednesday, and we were only going to play 9 holes. It's a long week. We played 9 on Monday, 18 on Tuesday, which I can talk to you about in a minute. And then we were going to play 9 on Wednesday. And we kind of jumped around. He wasn't settled. I mean, you know, you've been at tournaments, and I've been there with you. Your rationale goes right out the window. So like Wednesday of a major, it's like you barely remember your own name. Everything's an issue. Like the towel's not clean. The towel's too wet. The towel's too dry. It's like, what the hell? And you don't know this kind of stuff. So everything is just amped up. So I'm giving him, when we get to a tee, I'm giving him front yardage, pin yardage, and if it's a back pin, over the green yardage. And then we've got up, down.
On the tee, that's on a par 3, you mean, then?
On the par 3 or second shot into a par 4.
Yeah.
So we got, you know, front yardage, pin, possibly back yardage. It was a lot of elevation changes, so we've got adjustment for that. And then we had temperature and wind. So by the time he's getting ready to hit, he's like, there's too many numbers. Like I'm just tell me what I need to hit. So we really ground through it. Like if you'd have been with us on Wednesday, you'd have thought there's going to be fight breaking out Thursday, because it was just like, I can't do this. You're giving me too much information. So the greens, we knew we were going to get firmer. So Wednesday night we went to the store, and this is what we came up with. So when the greens are marked, each grid is 5 yards.
Yep.
Okay. So on every hole, I marked the front, this color, blue, is 10-yard or a maximum 15-yard carry. Yeah. And then the yellow was a 15-yard to 20-yard carry. Okay. That was our max number, because a lot of the greens, they were undulating, and as you got to the back, they were going to shoot off into like this.
So you don't want to hit it past the yellow zone because the ball can bounce off the back. Yeah.
Correct. So that was his max carry number. So all I gave him when we got in the fairway was front, and then plus 10 or plus 15, depending on where the flag was, and depending where the wind was. And so I gave him three numbers max, and then it was, where's the wind and what's the elevation change. And a lot of times, he's like, okay, I know where the elevation is, roughly what it is, so don't even mention that. But I only gave him those last two things if he asked for them, because any more than this was just like overload. There was too much information going on. And what we found was, by a lot of the holes, the trouble, like a fairly traditional golf course, the trouble was at the front.
Yeah.
So there was an area where you could run it on if you were in the rough, but the rough was just brutal. You weren't running it on much. Yeah. We knew if we carried it this far on the green, a lot of times the green got wider.
Yeah.
And also a lot of the bunkers and the trouble were in front like that.
Yeah. And that is also a good point. Like you told me, and I didn't even know this, that the toughest pins on greens are front pins, because they look so welcoming. A front pin, oh, that's perfect. But what you mentioned there, if you slightly mishit it, you're gonna end up short. And where's all the trouble? Short, right?
In front, usually in front. And also a lot of these holes you were running up to the green.
Yeah.
So if you miss it short, now you're running back 20, 30 yards, and you're not the only one. So now you're in divots potentially. Yeah. So even when it was a front pin, the minimum distance I would give him was 10 on.
Yeah.
Because we knew that, okay, if you hit it, say it's 5, it was never less than 5 on the front. So if we hit it 10, you're what's that, 15 feet from the hole?
Yeah.
Past the hole, and you've hit a really good shot, you've committed to it, you've done that. A lot of times it doesn't go quite as far as you think it's going to go. And so one, you're trying to hit 10 past, may end up at 5, or if you don't quite flush it, it's on the front edge at least.
And if you're an amateur golfer, if you're honest to yourself, it's not many times you flush that, but everyone are, the flag is 150 on, my 8-iron goes 150, and then you just hit it. And then they slightly mishit it, they hit it 142, and it's short, plugged in a bunker or in the rough. So this is a great point for an amateur. Take even more club. Obviously, they don't play firm green, so they can almost play a backyardage, can't they?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I tell when you were in college and you're a professional now, so you got more ball control than you had.
Yeah.
But I'm like, him at the middle of the green, you all hit it so far. Yeah. The thing is, you don't have to make birdies on the par 4s.
No.
You just need to try and make 4s. Mm-hmm. And you need to try and make 3s on the 3s. And occasionally you'll screw up and make birdie. And then the 5s are where you make hay, So it truly is, what Scott Fawcett talks about is bogey avoidance.
Yeah.
And it's incredible when you try and approach it that way, how your level anxiety goes this way. So you make more good swings. If you're trying to sneak it in there, get it close, and you miss it, you hit the bunker, you make bogey, now you've got to work harder to get it back. So
I still remember the first time you told me about this. I was in Florida getting ready for the PGA Tour Latin America Q School, I think it was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you told me literally to just avoid bogeys, like do whatever you can, even with wedges.
Yes.
Hit him on the safe side all the time. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do this because you had annoyed me enough for me to kind of change my mindset.
Motivated.
And the first tournament I go out, it was a Champions Gate day on the international course, I think. And I shot 8 under. Yeah. And it's a tough course from the back tee. And Hannah was on the bag and she's like, I don't know what the heck would. It was just stress-free, even with the wedge, fat part of the green. And then I go to the Q school, same thing. I shoot 9 under, I think I finished 4th at Q school, full status. And we're literally with a sandwiches in our hand and like, okay, how can I hit the green here? It sounds stupid, but because I never thought like that before. But you know, eventually you're gonna make some putts, and I'm hit it fairly long, so I'm going to make the birdies on par 5s.
Yes.
So it was brilliant, and it's something I've taken to heart ever since.
It really is, and I wish I invented it. I didn't, but it's really, really good information. And I find from watching good players, the more good shots you hit, you just kind of like start going like this. You feel super confident, and you hit bad shots, you go like this. And obviously we want to avoid that as much as possible, but giving you easier tasks to do makes you more confident. If you knew the best player in the field all the time, you wouldn't need a sports psychologist. You know, you'd be like, I can beat all these guys. So you need more of that mindset. And when you're playing a tournament like Billy was, a wedge to 20 feet is a good shot. It's not a defeatist shot. And you get a wedge in your hand, you can't make bogey. I mean, one of Tiger's things was don't make a bogey with a 9-iron or a wedge in your hand. I mean, like, best player ever. He's talking about bogey avoidance. So why the hell are we trying to do it? And the other thing you and I've talked about a lot is trying to hit a shot, trying to hit one type of shot and not trying to hook this, fade this, because then you have inconsistent carry distances. I remember, you know, I got you to talk to Per Johansson a few years ago, and Per played on 2 Ryder Cups, won 5 times in Europe, and he was like, "How far do you hit your 7-iron?" He like you didn't know.
I mean, I said 155 meters, kind of. And he's like, kind of. He's got bullied for an hour.
Oh yeah, you can imagine what it was like working with Per when I was working with him. But it was great. I mean, it's like he knew how far he carried it, and he didn't try and carry it further. And I think that's what a lot of us struggle with, because we've hit a great drive, and then we think, okay, I'm swinging really well, I can hit this next one 10 yards further. Yeah, maybe you do, but that's not the way to try. And you're not going to hit 10 yards further. Try and hit it 10 yards further. And again, it's all the boring stuff that I was told as a kid, and I thought it was wrong. I thought it's a conspiracy. They're trying to make me play bad, and it's not.
But the issue is, I mean, really, what you're trying to do with me and all your players is just dummy it down, make it as simple as possible. And it's hard because then everything you see on social media, on TV, are these spectacular shots. Mm-hmm. I promise you, more than half of them is either a pull or a push because they weren't aiming to that pin on the left side with water left, you know, and then right. So it's you get in your head that you need to be able to shape the ball both ways. You have Tiger Woods, 9-shot drill. Mm-hmm. I mean, but the best players that I play with out on tour or in rounds, they're just extremely good at being the most boring players you've ever seen. Just hits it, their shot shape 90% of the time, hits every fairway, hits every green, pretty much, obviously, but the mistakes are just small. It's not that they do anything spectacular that you can't do. It's just boring off. Yeah,
and it's, I mean, a number of times we've talked about if you've played with a seasoned tour pro and you're like, it didn't do anything special. I was like, that's it. But that, like, one thing I'll give credit, Billy deserves a lot of credit on a number of fronts, but when he's under the gun, which is a lot of times in that tournament, he delivered a shot that he knows he can hit. And that sounds so obvious, sounds so stupid, but he didn't cloud his brain with too many thoughts at that point or tried to do something he couldn't do. He just hit a solid shot and kind of see where it finishes. And the number of times he did that, and he beat a ton of really, really good players. If you look on that list, he beat guys that have played all their lives and made millions, and he beat them pretty handily, He played with Bernard Langer on Tuesday, which was great. Billy Andrade, our friend, set up the practice round, and it was tremendous because that pucker factor was really high. I mean, you're on the first tee, there's people around the tee, and it's, next on tee is William Mitchell, Billy Andrade, and Bernard Langer. And it's like, holy shit, that'll get you going. And Langer couldn't have been nicer. And went about his business, and Billy was out there playing with him and hitting it shot for shot with him. And I think that, got him feeling like, okay, I can do this. But I don't think you'll mind me telling you, Sunday morning, he's paired with Marco Mira, and Billy's girlfriend came up and she's like, I said, how's he doing? And she goes, he's not great this morning. I said, that's fine. That's how he should be. And he's like, he threw up this morning. I said, yeah, that's normal. That happens. And, she is a golfer, but she'd no idea what a grind it is.
Yeah.
From our side of the fence, she sees all this and the waving and like the absolute grind it is. So it was a ton of fun to do something and achieve something.
Yeah.
But I'm lying to you if I say it was a lot of fun during the round. Like we were, it was hard work, and
I know.
trying to get the yardages right. And, particularly when he struggled on Sunday and it was going south, and to hold in there and tell someone, so he's 4 over after 5. The 6th hole is a downhill par 5. We tweaked the 3-wood on Saturday night to change the loft on it. And now he's got a bit of a hanging lie 3-wood, and he's 230 to the front edge. So his 5-wood wouldn't quite get there. And I was like, it's 3-wood, Billy, you got to hit 3-wood, like commit to hitting it. And he's like, I don't want to bring back into play because it was a green like this. I was like, you're not going to hit it over the back of the green with that shot. And I was sounding like I was 100% convinced, and I was 60% convinced at best. But I'm like, my voice must have carried because the gallery is fairly close to us.
Yeah.
And he striked it, hit it on the green, hit 15, 20 feet. And they're like, it was pretty awesome because they were listening to the back and forth and hearing that, on TV, they'd have just shot to that shot, they'd have seen the swing, they'd have knocked it on the green. It looks, no problem.
He knew exactly what he was doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. They had no idea of the back and forth that went on prior to that, and the freaking breathing that was going on prior to that. Because like I'm walking down the fairway going, let's get some breaths going. Like let's get the diaphragmatic breathing going. Let's not just assume that you're going to breathe correctly. Let's breathe.
I think that's a great point, because people, and I talk about this all the time. People are like, oh, yeah, how does it feel during Q school? It must be so much fun when you're playing well. It's like, bro, it's the worst week. You don't sleep. You literally feel horrible all week. The thing is that it's how you react to that, which makes the biggest difference. Like you said, oh, he threw up, and you're like, yeah, that's normal. She's freaking out, right? She's like, what is going on? Yeah, what's going on? Billy, obviously, he's a veteran by now. He hasn't been in that big of a situation, I think, but he still knows that can happen. And then have you there, and you're not reacting, be like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, kind of freaking out, calming down. It's like, this is completely normal. So handling pressure, you're going to feel like really bad. And it's a matter of accept it and do the best you can, because you're not going to be able to talk to a psychiatrist, someone that calms you down and you're good to go. It's just not going to happen,
That is one of the biggest misconceptions, I guess is the right word, that trying to become calm or trying to get in the zone, it annoys the shit out of me, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to get in the zone or trying to become calm, you're spending all your energy in the wrong area. So it's stressful. If you're going to try and do something to that level, you're doing things that other people can't do. So first of all, you're in rare air to begin with. And your body knows that. So you can't lie to yourself, because at some point, the harsh reality hits you. So you have to kind of accept that stress is part of the deal, and understand how your body reacts under stress. Obviously, having been there a few times, that helps, because there's no magic potion. But you have to understand what your body does under stress. So don't try and get where you're stress-free, because if you're in that situation, you're not competing in big enough events. If you're stress-free, then you're way better than everybody else around you, and you're either never going to get anywhere, or you need to get out of town and go find a tougher sport, because you just haven't pushed yourself enough. So that was one of the biggest things for me with players, was understanding that this is not going to change. So how do we operate in this environment. One of the guys that went through Billy's qualifying in Atlanta, I'd met him through Billy. He missed the cut, but I saw him Friday morning and we were walking, you know, we're on the practice tee, I'm walking around. I was like, how are you doing today? He goes, I'm not feeling good. Like I couldn't get comfortable at all yesterday and I couldn't perform. Like he's a good player. He's qualified for the Senior Open. He shot 82. And I said, don't try and get comfortable. Like you're wasting your energy trying to get comfortable.
Yeah.
You're going to be uncomfortable. Your best bet is to try and function when you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just accept that. And I saw him on Sunday. He's like, thank you. That really helped to just not think, why can't I remember my own name? Just, this is what it's like. Let's go, you know?
That's also why, you know, why having a great caddy is so important. Hannah's been on the bag for me and she gets it, right?
Mm-hmm.
She also is like, oh yeah, you stress. Yeah, she competes too, but it's always good to have someone there to go through the war with you, right? Because I would say, I mean, it's a calming factor. It might not be calm you down, but you're there with someone else. You can try to focus on different things and find ways around on handling the stress and so on. But yeah, I mean, I think that's massive. But if we move on, you guys were prepping for the course, like prepping for the tournament in the practice rounds, except for looking at where to hit it on the greens, and you showed me the yards book. Did you do anything else in particular? You mentioned something about different shots around the greens, right?
Yeah, we a couple of things. I mean, you know, the sight lines were difficult off the tees, and I looked at the weather forecast for the week, so I knew where the weather was going to come from. So in the practice rounds, the other thing I do was I write down where the wind is each day. And then I write down on not on every hole apparently, but a lot of the holes, what he hit those different days and where the wind was coming from. So by the time Thursday rolls around, we've had 2 or 3 different winds. We've had 2 or 3 different shots from that distance. So his level of comfort is much that, okay, I know the ball's going to fly this far in this situation, what this temperature is. So I think that's very helpful, because what you don't want is any surprises or minimal surprises. There are going to be surprises, but the more you can be ready for them, the better off you are. We looked at sight lines off the tee to make sure that the architect a lot of times will try and send you in a direction, and you have to try and decide, is that actually correct? There was one hole, the 4th hole, you know, fairly long par 4, 420 uphill a little bit, and Andre and I think Langer on Tuesday both hit 3-woods. And so you're playing with 2 guys who made a lot of money playing golf, and Billy's like, should I hit 3-wood? I was like, no, man. Like we know our bunker run out is 285, and it's uphill, so we're not going to get to that. And we got a wide enough entry there. And Billy and Langer were laying back, and Billy was giving me crap like, "Oh, you're hitting driver everywhere now, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, because that if it's this wide there, and it's the same back here, you're not guaranteed to hit 3-wood much straighter."
No.
And now Billy's 20 or 30 yards further up the fairway.
Yeah, and he couldn't reach that bunker, which was big, right?
He couldn't reach the bunker, so we're looking at run out numbers. And so if he knows he can go ahead and hammer it as much as he can, and it's not going to run through. He's got total confidence. If you're trying to fit it in somewhere, don't do that. Pull back and hit 3-wood at that point.
Yeah, the truth is, like you're saying, if you're playing it safe by hitting less club, it's not a guarantee to hit the fairway, so it might hurt you. But also, in my experience, I don't hit my 3-wood much straighter than my driver anyway.
No, all tour players now, when they've looked at the data, they're not hitting the fairways any markedly higher percentage with a 3-wood. And now you're at least 20 yards behind where you would be with a driver. So if you hit it in the rough and you got 9-iron versus 7-iron, you personally can get it on the green with 9-iron, unless it's like real cabbage. So get me in the rough further up the fairway. You know, that's the plan. But we didn't go just cavalier on it. Like, we had a plan for every hole, and then executed that plan. And he did the execution, but he knew at that point we had a good plan, and he but he had to hit the boring shots to those targets we'd selected. And we looked at the pin sheet, but we didn't really use the pin sheet. You know, we really used our numbers And when the number was good, he ended up close to the pin. Like he made a number of birdies.
Yeah.
But if the number wasn't good, we were not going to push it. On the few occasions he did, it bit us a little bit, but just you can't get it right every time.
So the rough was pretty tall around the greens, right? You told me that you worked on a certain shot using less loft around the greens.
Yeah, and I'll post it on Instagram. But the traditional thinking is, I mean, literally the rough was this deep, that deep. So Tuesday practice round, Monday we played a little bit. Tuesday, like I'm talking to the players. I'm like, how often do I get to pick Bernard Langer's brain? So I'm like, hey Bernard, what about this? What about that? And he was great. And so I said, how are you playing these around the greens? He goes, well, I'm trying to hit them very hard. And so you had to either commit to a blast, or it was too deep to just kind of chip it out. So we went back that afternoon, and the lob wedge, because of the length of the rough, the ball was sitting in different parts of the rough. So it wasn't dropping to the bottom. It was kind of at some point in the rough. So you had to kind of
figure out
where you could hit the ball within the rough. So depth of contact was really important. And then I found that the 60, because of the loft on it and the rough, the ball was almost sliding up the face.
Yeah.
So it was, you'd swing hard, it could kind of flop or it could come out hot.
Yeah.
And then we tried the 54, trying the kind of release stuff that you and I talk about, where you got a fairly vertical shaft to begin with, and then release some loft onto it. And it came out beautifully. And he had, on Sunday, probably hit it the worst he'd hit it. Just, it was so difficult with the pins and the wind. He missed a lot of greens, and he hit some unbelievable up and downs. And the pitching was just phenomenal all week. But we worked on it quite a bit. We worked all around the practice green. We tried different shots. James Seekman is a friend of mine who's like the short game expert. And, I'm over there talking to him like, James, what are you seeing? And the amazing thing about all of this is we're trying to beat their brains out come Thursday.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're like, how the hell are you playing this? Like, what are you seeing on this yard?
That's so cool. That's so cool in golf. The same experience anywhere. It's just a gentleman's game in that aspect for sure. And I think that's a really cool thing you guys are mentioning. You guys are trying to hit different shots that you're going to be facing. Mm-hmm. A lot of players, when they come to a tournament, they don't really take into consideration that this is a different type of conditions that you might be used to. You might need to figure out how to do this. It's not just always lob wedge. You know what I mean? 100%. You guys figured out, okay, this shot actually comes out better with this club. It's the same with bunkers, in my experience. Sometimes when you have a lot of sand, use less loft. You don't have to hit it as hard. Right. If you come to a course with no sand, maybe you even have to not open up the club face so that you can allow that leading edge to dig. So there's plenty of things that you might have to figure out. And that's why practice rounds and preparation is massive. You can't just show up the day of the tournament and expect to play well, can you?
No. And I think, like I said before, I mean, my job is to try and understand the principles as much as possible. So I knew that, okay, we can adjust this given these principles to work around. So it wasn't just like shake the dice and go for it. This was a calculated guess based on experience and understanding of ball flight. So that's why, experience takes time to learn. You got to go through those things. But we did the things to the swing that we knew we had to do to keep it performing the way it needed to. And then the nuances around the greens, we worked on, because that was something he can adjust to. He has a gap between his 4 hybrid and his 5 iron that we knew we had a problem with, and it ran into it a few times. And one of my friends is a tour rep out there. He made a 4 hybrid for us on Tuesday. It felt great, but come Wednesday, I'm like, Billy, we just don't have enough experience with this club to put it in play. Like, it could be awesome, but we know what this club does. Yeah. So again, let's eliminate as many surprises as possible. So when you're spitting the bid out there, I know what this club does. It may not be perfect, but I have this level playing field of understanding. And that's what I was going to say with you and Hannah. It's like, and me and Billy, we spent so much time together in other situations that when it comes to a stressful situation, now you have that level of trust. So when something is freaking you out, she can be the voice of reason and vice versa. And So that does take time, but you have to practice with these baselines in mind. If you're trying different stuff all the time on the range and you're not really getting better at skills like mastery, that will not prevail in stressful situations.
Well said. Well said. Okay, and now Bill is back training people. Yeah.
Yeah, Billy, yeah, he had a lot of nice TV to do on Sunday, so he was on the final green with Furyk. He gets an exemption into the US Amateur, US Mid Amateur, Senior Open next year. I think the British Senior Open. So he went from Omaha. We were doing an event together in New York on Tuesday. I came home Sunday night, went to New York, and he went Monday directly. So come Tuesday morning, he was back working for me. It was great.
That's right. I saw he's carrying your bags.
Exactly. Yeah. Turn around. Yeah.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, John. I think it's a lot of good information here for anyone that wants to improve the game and maybe learn how to prepare better for a tournament.
Yeah.
And find inspiration from Billy. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. Perform on the biggest stage in the world.
It really is. Yeah. And, you know, he did all the things that you and I have talked about, and then it played out at the biggest stage. So for me as a coach, for him as a player, it's great because you know that, okay, what I'm doing is good. That's the thing about tournaments. You can play and you think you're doing pretty well. When you get to a tournament, it's just an exam to understand, like, where are you? You know,
exactly.
I'd encourage everybody to try and compete. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But it really lets you understand where you are. And it's an absolute high when you get it right.
Exactly. Thank you, John. Appreciate you.
Likewise. Thanks, Frederick.
You got it. That was good. That was good, man. Very good. I tried to wrap it up a little bit because you and I can talk for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Can you